Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, you're listening to my regular YouTube live stream. Ask James, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. Before we get into the questions, let's just cover off a little bit of team news for you. Christian Romero is still unavailable for Tottenham this weekend. Callum Wilson has a hamstring injury. It's likely to keep him out for a couple of weeks. Anthony Martial has an Achilles injury, won't be involved for Manchester United tomorrow. There are no updates from Pep Guardiola on team news, and there probably won't be. Jurgen Klopp says none of Liverpool's absentees from Monday's defeat at Manchester United will be back this weekend. James Maddison is a doubt for Leicester's trip to Chelsea. N'Golo Kante is out for about a month. Mateo Kovacic could be a sub for Chelsea in that encounter against Leicester. I think that's about it, roughly, of the major team news. You will see on the top right-hand corner of the ticker a few things going around with some tidbits from each club and stuff as well. Newcastle have also, in the last half hour or so, confirmed the sign of Alexander Isak. Unknown at this moment, as far as I'm aware, whether he can play against Wolves this weekend. Also expecting Everton to confirm the sign of Neil Maupay today as well. Right, let's get into the questions. Rob H says, hi James, best Callum Wilson replacement in Sky. I can go up to 8.6 million and don't have a captain for Leicester versus Manchester United. Many thanks, mate. Rashford could be an option, 8.1. Obviously, Rob, I don't know if you've got availability in different positions. For the benefit of the FPL listeners, you can change from a striker to a midfielder or a defender in this game. William Saliba, 7.4 at Arsenal, was obviously very interesting. You can come right down to an enabler, someone like Wilfred and Diddy, who's 6.9. I'd think Saliba would be top of the agenda there. If you need to stay with a striker, probably Mitrovic. That'll put about 0.9 in your bank. I know the fixtures aren't great, but he's consistent. He'll tick over. Worth considering. Midnight Mule FPL says, I have a bet with my brother that Tottenham will finish higher than Manchester United this season. Who will win the bet? Come back in game week 38 and I'll tell you, mate. But I obviously hope that you're right. My best guess is that you will be. I would expect Tottenham to finish above Manchester United at the moment, yes. Lin Tian Bao says, hey James, 2 free transfers. Looking to downgrade Bailey and do Nico to Saliba to play him. But Bailey is my only route to a Leeds midfielder in game week 4 unless I sell Mount. Should I do it or burn the transfer? Not sure I understand the question. You're looking to downgrade Bailey and do Nico. So Nico Williams to Saliba, but you need to downgrade Bailey. Yeah, come down that. Can you come down to Andreas Pereira if you do that? I don't know if it's affordable. I don't know what you've got in the bank, but it seems absolutely reasonable. In terms of getting a Leeds midfielder, I may be wrong here. They've obviously got a good run of fixtures coming up, but I don't think Leeds fans will be overly enthused about the trip to Brighton tomorrow, where they have a bad record. I don't think they've beaten Brighton since they came back up. I don't think they've even scored many, so I wouldn't be desperate to have a Leeds attacker this week. Everton at home and Forest at home 5-7 has Brentford away sandwiched in the middle. A good little run of 3 fixtures. What are we saying? Leeds players are essential. You all know my opinion. No player in this game is essential. Austin Laley says, hi James, was planning on bringing Rodrigo in for Bailey in game week 5 midweek, but feel I could be priced out of the move by then if Bailey drops in price tonight. Should I make the move now or not? I'd say if you're planning to go there, yeah, I'll just get it done. I mean, on Leon Bailey specifically, nice goal against Bolton in midweek. You're definitely going to want to make the move come game week 5, Arsenal away and then City at home afterwards. I'd just move it, I think, that one. I mean, I realise that's kind of the opposite of what I just said. But if you absolutely know that you're going to make that move in 5 anyway, yeah, I'd probably get it done, particularly if there is a concern about the change in price. Ramanthan says, hey James, hope all is good. Have a good weekend. And to you too, mate. Have a good one. Shanzar Zaman says, hi James, hope you're doing well. I just want to get your opinion on Trossard, as I feel he's going under the radar at the moment, and the new left wing back signing will push him more advanced, yielding more FPL. I spoke about this on one of the pods earlier in the week. I think the Monday pod, forgive me, I might have that wrong. That one of the reasons Brighton's fluidity in and out of possession is working so well for Leandro Trossard at the moment is that he's playing left wing back. Now, admittedly, he moved to a more central position behind Danny Welbeck when Estupiñán came on against West Ham on Sunday. That said, I'm not sure if Brighton will be able to transition between systems so well if Estupiñán comes into the team for Trossard. So there's an element of the unknown. In practice, yes, Leandro Trossard's from a starting higher position should be better than playing left wing back. But I've spoken about this a number of times this season, that there's something very unique about the way that he plays that position, in the sense that he drops into a left forward position and versus left wing back with and without the ball, which is unlike how any other team does it. You know, even Perisic won't be doing that at Tottenham. And whether that will work the same with Estupiñán coming into the team, I would say is probably quite unlikely, would be my best guess. So I think it's one to monitor. I do agree that he's probably under the radar. I think the problem you've got is at the moment, you've got Pascal Gross, who on the face of it is playing a higher position at the moment, and is about £1 million cheaper. But if you've seen something, mate, you crack on. I don't hate that. They've got good fixtures coming up. Lintian Bao also says, what do you think of having a 4.4 million midfielder as second bench? Would mean only Andreas is playing bench option. Thanks, James. Probably not ideal when you've got clear playing midfielders for the extra 0.1. So not ideal at the moment. Someone will drop into that bracket, I'm sure, at some point, who is a playing midfielder. So I would not be in a rush to go there. The chances are you're not going to need it, but we don't really know the true impact of this Champions League rotation. You've got a Man City asset and they get left out. There's every chance they're not getting on the pitch, right? Whereas if you look at someone like Perisic, yeah, sure, we don't know if he's going to start or not. It's guaranteed minutes, isn't it? If he's left out, he's getting on. It's almost a guarantee. It's not like that across the board with all the clubs. So ideally, I would want minutes from a second playing bench player. Joe Pickle says, sorry if I already spoke about, but your thoughts on Champions League group, and will you be going on any away days? To be honest, Joe, I've not really thought about much else over the last 24 hours other than European away days. So I'm not going to go to Marseille or Eintracht Frankfurt. I'll just be going with my dad. And I get the impression that neither will be particularly enjoyable experiences. I'd be more tempted if one of them was a knockout game, but there's a tie I prefer. I think if we'd have got Pilsen rather than Sporting Lisbon, or somewhere else I knew I wasn't going to go, as an example, then I would maybe have been more tempted about Marseille. But Sporting Lisbon is the one I think would be a great trip. I've not seen Tottenham play in Portugal. That would be great. The intention is to go to Sporting Lisbon. It is purely waiting on the date. We're probably expecting at this stage that we may not get fixtures until tomorrow morning. But as soon as there are fixtures, I will be trying to book flights to go to Lisbon. Somewhat complicated by the fact that match day 3 also happens to be my wife's 40th birthday. And I don't think she's going to take too kindly to a game that I don't have to go to, let's say. But we'll wing it, I think. Maybe. The intention is to go to Lisbon. Yes, we'll get 2,500 allocations, so I know I'll get a ticket legitimately through Tottenham and stuff. So, yeah, the plan's to go to Sporting Lisbon. I'm just waiting on the date and then want to get it booked. The draw itself is more difficult than it looks on paper. It reminds me a lot of the draw that Tottenham had in 2016. I think I've got the year right. When we had Leverkusen, you could substitute Leverkusen for Frankfurt. We got Monaco. You could substitute Monaco for Marseille, and instead of Sporting Lisbon, CSK Moscow. And we got that draw, and we went, oh wow! Not only are we going to go through, we're going to win this group, and it didn't work out that way. We were out before we even got to the 6th game of the group. We performed really well. Pochettino made some strange selections, particularly in the away game against Monaco in match day 5, where we had to win. He left out Kyle Walker, I remember. Bizarre. Anyway. But yeah, I think it's a tough draw. It's not an easy one in there. Like, the 4 teams will take points off each other. I think that's clear. So I think all 4 teams in that group are arguably capable of finishing between 1st and 4th. We would rightly be favourites. I think I saw in the betting we're 6th overall favourites to actually win the competition, which seems a little bit ludicrous to me, based on our pedigree. But yeah, we rightly be favourites for that group. I think the group stage draws probably had an impact on that overall pricing. Yeah, confident. No reason not to be, but I think us Tottenham fans can see the similarities with that draw from 5 years ago and realise that it went wrong very, very quickly. There's no gimme there. Home results will be particularly important, I think. Billy Anderson has put in the chat big. He's just put big. I'm anything but big, my friend. Matt Bryant says, afternoon, mate. Hope you're well. I'm buzzing about the Champions League draw. Speaking of which, how much should we worry about rotation risk when considering quality players, for example, Haaland, Perisic, Cucurella, etc.? So, from an FPL perspective, I don't think it's a good Champions League draw. I mean, if you take Tottenham's, there are 6 potentially very difficult games there. Not any that you'd think, oh, I'm resting for this. I don't think that's really there. For Manchester City, there's possibly a case for the Copenhagen games, but Dortmund and Seville are challenging. Liverpool, even the fact that they've got Rangers as kind of the bottom seed, Rangers will give them 2 proper football games. Napoli will be difficult, particularly away from home. Obviously, Ajax have good pedigree. So again, Liverpool, City, Tottenham, you would all expect to go through. But there's not any, with respect, there's not Maccabi Haifa's or Victoria Pilsen's, the sort of home games where you think, oh yeah, you really can change 6 or 7 there. The teams don't really have it. Chelsea arguably do with, I think, the Dynamo Zagreb fixture. Salzburg probably subject to when the games are and how they're getting on in the group. Chelsea, I think, arguably have got the best draw, I think, of the 4. Milan is obviously a big pedigree name, which Tottenham don't have. But Milan have been out of Europe for an extremely long time. So I think it's a great draw for Chelsea. I think it's largely a bad draw for FPL managers. I can't tell you anything at the moment because we haven't got these fixtures, which obviously we would have hoped we had by now. And then once we've got them, we can plot in and look, oh yeah, Haaland's got 3 games in 6 days there. He's likely to miss one. Similar with Perisic, etc., etc. We can't do that yet. Perisic, I've already highlighted several times, is a problem this week anyway because Tottenham already have a schedule of Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. Whereas if you take Arsenal, for example, Arsenal have Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, and then Thursday. Whereas I think Tottenham's first Champions League game will likely be on the Tuesday because Chelsea play West Ham on the Sunday in game week 6. So I think it's highly likely Tottenham will play on the Tuesday. That means Tottenham have got Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday. I mean, there's no guarantee that anyone starts all 4 of them games. Even Kane, honestly, wouldn't be a huge shock if that was the circumstance. And Kane didn't start Fulham at home, for example. Similar obviously applies to Sonny, would obviously apply to the likes of Perisic. So it's very difficult to say till we look at the fixtures and we can start plotting it and go, oh, that's an easy one there, and there's only 3 days gap, and they've got, you know, Wolves away at the weekend where they don't want to rest them. Do you understand what I mean? It's really difficult to give any form of answer till we can put them fixtures on a piece of paper. It sounds like they might not be out till 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is obviously the deadline for game week 4. Fingers crossed it might hopefully be tonight to give us a bit of a clearer indication. It's another reason why I'm potentially considering rolling at the moment. I think the information going forward could be quite good for me. Shanzar Zaman says, points. He's been Brighton's best player based on pre-season form, and also Brighton's fixtures from an attacking point of view are brilliant. I presume that's in response to the earlier point on Leandro Trossard. Rob Pick says, hello mate from sunny Tenerife. Why are you not just enjoying your holiday? You shouldn't be watching me, mate. Would you do Saka to Luis Diaz for free, or just roll the transfer and have 2 for midweek? Have Salah captain and triple Arsenal attack. Good luck and enjoy Nottingham. If you've got triple Arsenal attack, how are you? Oh, I see you've only got 2 Liverpool. Okay, yeah, makes sense. And to be honest, Rob, unless you're concerned about price changes, no, there's more power in rolling, I think, mate. I do very much intend to join Nottingham. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I'd roll it if you can. I think it's one of them where if Diaz is going up and Saka's going down, for whatever reason, to be honest, I've not looked at the price sites today, then I think, yeah, make the move, because that 0.2 swing and what it could be might be worth it. Otherwise, if there's no price concern, I'd probably leave it, mate, to be totally honest. I'll put it in both teams to score 3 tomorrow. FPL Glasser says, no question, just saying hi and good luck. Really enjoyed the 1000th pod, by the way. Cheers. Cheers, mate. Much appreciate that. That's a week ago already. Billy Anderson says, hi, James. I have Ward and I'm looking to get in Sanchez. But is it worth it for a -4? Because I can't afford it with one move, and I'd have to take the silver out for Reed, thinking roll till next week now. No, I don't think it is. I don't think. If you're facilitating, I'll give you an example. So, like I know Sudge is thinking of moving. I think he's got Ramsdale. Don't quote me on that. But I think he's thinking of going Sanchez to Ramsdale, Ramsdale to Sanchez, which with the money in the bank, I think allows him. Salah to Son. Now, admittedly, they're for 2 free transfers. But let's say he wanted to do that as the -4. I mean, you can make a strong case for that because you're using the goalkeeper transfer to facilitate, obviously, buying Mo Salah into your team. I think if you're just making the -4 literally just because you want to get rid of Danny Ward, it's not worth it. Not in my opinion. The reality is the same every single week for goalkeepers. They could lose 4-0 and he might save a penalty and still get you 8-9 points. It's just not worth it. There's far too much unpredictability about a goalkeeper's return. Sure, he doesn't look like save anything at the moment, never mind a penalty. I don't disagree. And yes, if it was me, I'd arguably be looking to move it on. Not for a hit though, mate. What's Sanchez realistically against Leeds? I mean, I think Leeds will score tomorrow in any case. But let's say clean sheet. 6, 7, 8 if Leeds play particularly well, maybe. For a hit, what's your best case scenario? Best case scenario is you gain, 3, including the hit or so. It's not worth it, mate. Andrew Grondin says, hi James, I have Mitrovic facing Saliba this week. Do you favour the defender from the better team at home or the attacker who can score a thunder bastard header against anyone? That's absolutely true, yeah. He can score a thunder bastard header against anyone. And I mean, one of the things I spoke about on the Patreon podcast we did earlier today was if Fulham could, both of Mitrovic's goals have come from the right-hand side, could Fulham manoeuvre a situation to get Mitrovic round the back of Zinchenko on the other side? I think leaving Saliba out at home to Fulham just looks completely wrong, doesn't it? Unfortunately. I think, although I can understand the want to go for an all-in situation, you'd ideally play both players. If you were transferring that to a different situation, say Mitrovic had Tottenham away and Saliba had Bournemouth at home, you'd play both, I think, in most case scenarios. So just consider that. I realise it's unlikely that they can both return, but in most cases I'd probably play both with those two particular players. Rockpie123 says, hi James, what's your favourite Madness song? If you don't like them, what's the song you love and will always go back to listen to? There's nothing I have that I always go back and listen to. Nothing at all. Favourite Madness song? One Step Beyond. Matthias Washik says, hi James, do you think Son starts against Forest? Yeah, I don't have concerns about that. It's not a guarantee. But I think Antonio Conte's reiterated that today in his press conference. He spoke very well about Heung-min Son. Yeah, I don't have concerns about him starting. I wouldn't be staggered, fall off my chair shock if he didn't. But yeah, 95% I would expect Son to start, mate. Jahan Ahmed says, hey James, do you know much about Isak? And if so, what's your thoughts? Does this put Newcastle in pole position to secure 7th, particularly with West Ham in Europe? It possibly does. Yeah, and I mean, look, I said in pre-season, subject to the business Newcastle did on what happened with Manchester United, which is still very unclear, right? We always judge by the recency bias. The recency bias is they were outstanding against Liverpool on Monday, but the 2 games before that were absolutely dreadful. Let's see how they do in games we expect them to win, like Southampton tomorrow, for example. Yeah, it probably does. I think it's going to be a difficult season for West Ham because of their involvement in Europe. Is a disadvantage for their Premier League form, because I think they'll go very deep in that competition. They're very capable of winning that trophy, West Ham, looking at the teams that are in it, and even looking at the Europa League draw. I did have a scan and kind of looked at the teams I thought would maybe finish third in those groups, and there's nothing overly to fear for West Ham, actually. So that's going to be difficult for their Premier League season, particularly with the start they've had. Brighton, I don't think we can discount at the moment, but yeah, I mean, there's every reason to think Newcastle would probably finish 7th. I think if you went down the bookies at the moment, they would probably make them favourites to finish as best of the rest, if you will. And I think that would have been the case actually prior to the signing of Isak. Very powerful player, good winning runner, can play multiple forward positions, not just as a number 9. My experience of watching him is only really with Sweden in Euros last season rather than La Liga. But capable of becoming a real top level forward. It's a real statement signing. I think it's a sign that Newcastle needed, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes straight into the lineup on Sunday. I imagine Chris Wood would play on Sunday, because it would be probably a bit of a sickener for him if he didn't. And Eddie Howe can be a little bit principled like that. He's a good manager in terms of how he deals with players. And I don't think it's a fixture where Newcastle need to feel enforced to throw him in, particularly with Liverpool away 3 days later as well. So I think it might take him a while to settle. We might not see the best of his act until we get to game week 8. Price will be interesting. Very, very interesting. If you look at some of the signings that have come in, people like Shamaka have come in at 7 million. I can't imagine he's going to come in at more than 8, really. I mean, that's kind of Jesus's price. So, I mean, really, he should be coming in sort of 7.5 or lower, I think. Interesting one, because that could go a number of different ways. The price tag, I think, will bump that up a little bit as well. But yeah, I think if you said now, who do you think finished 7th? Yeah, Newcastle, I think. Every reason to say yes to that. Reece Marlowe said, it'd be important they don't get injuries, though. Like most clubs. Reece Marlowe says, hi James, would you play Bailey over Aronson? No, I don't think I would actually. If you want my honest answer, probably blanks for both this weekend. Brighton away's tough, isn't it, for Leeds? That's really, really close. Really, really close. I would probably default to Aronson knowing that he'll start, whereas I wouldn't have any faith that Bailey does. Would be my take. If they both start, then Bailey's the slightly better pick, I guess. Close. I don't think you could. To be honest, Reece, I think you'd probably toss a coin and you'd probably end up with the same result this week. Birth Media says Rashford or Trossard for the next 5. I think what goes against Trossard, to kind of extend onto what I said earlier, is there are some cheaper options there, like Gross, who's cheaper and stuff. Whereas, obviously, if you want to invest in United, there isn't. And I think what we know with Rashford is, if Rashford plays like he played on Monday night, and again, we need to see more, he can explode, right? There's no way he should be 6.3. Marcus Rashford in peak condition is really sort of like a 9 million midfielder or so, which you wouldn't put Trossard into that bracket. But Trossard shows really nice consistency. The fixtures are better for Brighton. I'll be totally honest, I've looked at that valuation this week, and if I'd have bought either of them two, it would have been Rashford. But I would have bought Rashford probably in the knowledge that I would be prepared to move it on quite quickly if I was wrong. Dan Wheeler says, hi James, would you keep hold of Neto for the next 3 fixtures? And do you think a move to Arsenal would improve him as an asset? No, I don't think it would improve him, because I don't think it'd be guaranteed starter going up against Saka. I have this lingering feeling that I've had for a while that I think Arsenal may transition during the season to move Bukayo Saka into a number 8 position. Which buying someone like Neto would obviously facilitate. Nicolas Pepe's gone. That's obviously not facilitated at the moment. Would it make him a better option if he was going to play every week? You'd have to say yes, because Arsenal will score a lot more goals than Wolves, wouldn't you? My instinct is, and from what I'm hearing, that move won't happen this week. It's not to say it can't, but it's probably a little bit late in the day, I think. Arteta's comments also seem to suggest that he didn't think Arsenal were going to buy anyone before the window closed. So it's interesting. I saw a tweet actually that Arsene Wenger had been interested in Neto when he was 16 or 17. So he's obviously a player that probably Arsenal have followed for a very long time. They probably have extensive knowledge of his database, of his previous history, even when he was a teenager and stuff. But I don't see that move happening now. Would it make him a better asset? Yes, if he would play, but it's not necessary. In terms of the next 3 fixtures, yeah, you're probably a little bit sucked in by the potential price drops. But having taken a couple, I think, yeah, I'd want to keep for the next 3 at this stage. It wasn't helped, obviously, last week by the fact he ended up having to drop into right-back positions to track Perisic. I mean, he's not going to get put in that position by Burn or Target this weekend, or Zamora on Wednesday night, or Gineppo or Romain Peralta, whoever plays for Southampton next weekend. So ideally, yeah, keep if you've come this far, I think. Who's next? Jonathan Aves says, hi James, how is Suj as a boss? Have a good weekend, boys. Complete and utter arsehole, really. Not many people can say that about their bosses in public and get away with it. He's a star, isn't he? He has given me an incredible opportunity, which I'm very, very grateful for, and kind of gives me free reign in terms of artistic license. It's really the wrong term, but I guess yes, in terms of all the planning, everything's all done by me, and he just kind of trusts my opinion and lets me get on with it. So, yeah, he's a great boss. Adnan Shamsul says, hi James, I've already gone Robertson to Perisic. Is it worth it to do Son to KDB from -4? Thanks, love your content. I'm going to say yes. Because I think KDB, when we get there, might look like the best captaincy come game week 5, and that's what gives it the edge. It's a move that I've considered, but I think I'm unlikely to make this week. I might move Son to De Bruyne as part of the 2-3s in 5, possibly. I'm going to give it some thought. I've probably come to the conclusion of no, Adnan. But it certainly could be. I think if you're judging it over the next couple of games and a longer stretch, I mean, I would say if you're judging it up to game week 10, then yes. I'd have to say yes at the moment, with Man City having 5 home games in the next 7 and Tottenham having 2 home games in the next 7. I'd have to say yes. But if you're expecting the immediate return, close. I would make probably De Bruyne a slightly better captaincy option than Son this weekend. Definitely a better option in midweek. And Son's likely to get the rest in possibly 6, for example. But what's to say KDB won't? So I think, how long are you judging it for? And do you have to make it this week? Do you have to? I think the instinct, Adnan, will be that because you've moved Robertson to Perisic, it's opened up the money, right? And actually, if you don't then make that transfer, I'd go back and question, why have you moved Robertson to Perisic this week? Perisic probably does start. We don't have the info at the moment. Probably does start. Robertson at home to Bournemouth. We really lost that much faith. I just could not be making that move, was my take. The only way I'd have sold Robertson this week, I obviously don't have Salah, and I'm not saying that I won't sell Robertson, but I'd have been selling Robertson as part of making sure I could get Salah into the team. Otherwise, there's no way I would sell a Liverpool player this week, personally, unless it was to get a better Liverpool player. Thomas Coleman says, hi James, would you go Rodrigo or Trossard for the next few games? So this is similar to the previous one. I think Rodrigo, because of the form and those 3 fixtures after Brighton, yeah, might just be worth running with it. Again, it's worth saying most Leeds fans don't seem convinced that Rodrigo's going to be part of the first choice 11. And Bamford is fit. I can say he is fit. He's not 100% fit, I should probably add on to that. And Rodrigo probably still starts ahead of him tomorrow. Bamford could be on the bench tomorrow. It could be that it's one of them, first 4 or so, and that's it, done. But out of the 2, yeah, I would punt that with Rodrigo at the moment. Problem is, you could get stuck. You look at them fixtures, I can't sell Evan at home, Forest at home, can't sell and stuff. But yes, if it was between the 2 right now, I would go with Rodrigo and just take the wave of momentum with it, but it comes with a bit of caution, I think. Atul Balaji says, as a Spurs fan, what's your opinion of the Arsenal fan base? Not to generalise all of them, but I'm stunned by how many, including AFTV, think we're selling Neto for 25 million with 5 years left on the deal. Atul, I'll be honest, I've not seen any Arsenal opinions suggesting that they would get Neto for 25 million. I can assure you that price would be probably around about 3 times that. Talking nearer 75 than 25, honestly. So, look, what you see on social media, thing is, this is one of the reasons, but when I was getting a correspondence years ago, I absolutely knew I wanted to get Adam Pritchard because I knew he was nothing like the Arsenal Twitter. Intelligent, honest, calls it down the middle, loves his club. I hate them, but he loves his club. That's fair enough. And I really thought it was important that Adam represented that not everyone was like the kind of people that get on social media and follow the AFT bandwagon. I know it's not. Remember as well, in defence of them, like they've been, and you could say possibly unfairly, but like there's been a few games where like AFTV have been chased out the stadium by Arsenal fans and stuff, right? They are not all like that. Social media gives you a visualization of what something is. And 99% of people on social media don't have a fucking clue what they are talking about in relation to football. It's all about likes, clicks. Even you see mainstream media. Click this, like Tottenham have key player injured this weekend. It'd be a headline. You'd be like, oh, what? Yeah, I know Romero's injured. Why have you made me click on that? It's nonsense. I just avoid these people completely. And there's a lot of football fans out there. Listen, I know a lot of good Arsenal fans who are good and they're honest. I know a lot of dickhead Arsenal fans as well, to be fair. I know a lot of dickhead Tottenham fans. So there is a narrative around them because of the AFTV crowd. that it affects them. I think a lot of Arsenal fans are deluded. I'd say that. That's part of the rivalry, I think. Alex Abdella says, non-FPL question, just watch the Arsenal All or Nothing series. If you could watch an All or Nothing series for any team for any season, what would it be? The season Leicester won the league for me, says Alex. That's not what I'm saying. Didn't watch any of Arsenal All or Nothing. Got absolutely no interest in watching that. The Tottenham one was shit, so I know what the Arsenal one's going to show me. And I've seen the funny clips of Arteta losing his shit at Newcastle and stuff like that. It's good. Any team from any season, All or Nothing. I am going to say, it's obviously a Tottenham one, I'm going to say, isn't it? I think the run to the Champions League final, just have the inside on Manchester and Amsterdam and then the final and stuff. Even the Nou Camp in the group stage, Dortmund in the last 16, it would be that, I suppose. Or the final season at White Hart Lane. From a neutral, I think I would say Guardiola's first treble at Barcelona. Cyrus Bernard says, hey James, take a -8. Ward, James, Foden, Archer to Sanchez, Zinchenko, Rodrigo, Tony. What's thoughts on hits around now with game week 8-9 wildcard in mind? You've made the transfers, mate, so absolutely crack on. Are you going to feel better if I say to you, don't take hits? No, I'm not. Listen, you've taken a justifiable -8 to make your team better in the long run. Absolutely fine. I won't rule out doing similar in midweek, to be totally honest. I rule out doing it now, I think. Unless I get some really obvious team news leak. Can't see me doing it. So, I mean, the transfers on the face of it are fine. Improve your squad. Crack on, mate. If you need to take hits to improve your teams, just fine. Just get on with it. Alex Abdella says, next non-FPL question. What's the crack with Forest signing so many strikers? Interesting. So, arguably, the only real out-and-out striker they've bought, arguably, is Awayini. Now, I presume the way that they'll set up, you would have to consider Emmanuel Dennis as one as well. A lot of the players will play behind, so I wouldn't certainly classify Morgan Gibbs-White as a striker. There were players who will leave the club, like Lyle Taylor. Lewis Graben's already left the club. Sam Surridge may be allowed to go out on loan as well. And I think they may transition towards playing 2 behind 1 rather than 1 behind 2 in their front three. And listen, they in fairness were, I wouldn't say broken because they got promoted, but they basically were down to sort of 13, 14 players in terms of legitimately out of contract players and stuff from the team got promoted. And a lot of them obviously not good enough for the Premier League. So they had to go and buy 12, 13 players anyway. It was obvious to give themselves a chance. I don't think they've gone overly the top in the striker position. I'd argue they've gone more over the top in the midfield area, actually. Particularly if they're just going to end up with 2 in there and say Lingard and Gibbs-White behind 1, then they've got players in there who they can't all play. They've got Chiarte in, Remo Freuler, Lewis O'Brien, Oral Mangala. That's the new guys. Added on to Yates, Colback. So arguably in that midfield area, they've gone a little over the top, I'd say. Andrew Grondin says, James, as fiscally responsible as Chelsea have been this window, why are their bids for Fofana only increasing each time by 50 quid and a packet of crisps? It's not better to pay up and get him. Because Chelsea know they're getting their man. I mean, it's fairly obvious that transfer is going to happen, isn't it? So, yeah. Leicester were in a position where I think they realise they probably need to sell the player. So why are Chelsea going to go, oh yeah, there's an extra 10? They know they can probably force it through as it is, right? Discord in my head says Doherty when? I presume you mean when's Doherty going to get into the team? I'll tell you what, down to 4.7 is a player you should have on your mind. But I think we're probably not really looking for Doherty now until an Emerson injury, really. And arguably that probably not till sort of game week 10, 11 or so. That said, at his value, even with fixtures, you'd be tempted to take a punt on it. But I think, say Emerson got injured going into Man City away in 7, then you look at City away, Leicester home, Arsenal away, Brighton away. Would I be desperate to get him in? No, arguably not. If it worked and I had the luxury, great. When's he going to get in the team? I imagine he will play one of the games in the next. I wouldn't be shocked if he started on Sunday. I don't think he will. But there's minutes coming. But he's not first choice at the moment. To be totally honest with you, Emerson Royal, I think, has played absolutely fine in the 3 games for Tottenham so far, and his final 5, was it 5? Yeah, final 5 performances of last season were very good as well. So he's had 8 good games in a row for Tottenham, so he deserves to keep hold of the shirt at the moment. Philip Sutton says, "Hi James, thanks for the great content. Who surprised you most so far this season, player and team?" I think we've got to say Leeds, haven't we? I mean, that's so impressive last Sunday, what they did to Chelsea. So I think Leeds at the moment, but it's 3 games. You can make a case West Ham the other way, no points, no goals, but I'm not concerned about them, right? So, but I'll say Leeds. Toby Wilson says, "Hello James, would you do Diaz to Perisic? Thank you." I wouldn't be in a rush to do it, particularly with Nathan Ake particularly now getting injured, and all them home games City got to come. Might tick over quite nicely, Ruben Diaz. On the face of it, would I rather have Perisic? Yes. Would I be desperate to make that move when there's no guarantee Perisic plays? I mean, Diaz now, subject to the Ake injury, could play all 3 games in the next week, right? Perisic isn't going to. So we know the upside and the risk. Perisic is one. If you've got, definitely keep. Definitely. But the timing, I think, is quite important for the rest of us who are looking to buy. I'm not sure I'd make that move. You're going to be sick if you make that move and Perisic doesn't start, right? Joe Knight says, "Hi James Powell, I don't have Salah but do have Son. My only Liverpool cover is Trent and Diaz. Need a -4 to get to Salah. Advice, please." Take a -4 and get him. I can't really advise, mate, because I don't know what the rest of your team is. Who am I going to tell you to sell? You've only got Trent and Diaz, so you're available. You don't need to be selling Robertson. So find the money. Find the money from somewhere. Just get it done. If you're that desperate, if you need to get it done, get it done. I can't advise you to sell. I don't know who you've got, mate. Perlo's Pen says, "Hi James, quick benching questions. 1 to play. Bailey, Nico Williams or Andreas?" I think Bailey from that. Have a great time in Lisbon too. It's a great city. Well, fingers crossed I'll get to go. Jordan Williams says, "Thoughts on Leeds United? People fancied them to struggle at the start of the season. Had decent start, but has been favourable fixtures." I've just kind of covered that, Jordan. Liam Chalmers, Nori to Rico Henry or Roll, 1 free transfer. Yeah, it's probably a Roll with the next 3 fixtures Wolves have got. I mean, look at it this way. You can make the move now. Game week 5, Henry goes to Palace and Nori goes to Bournemouth. Brentford haven't kept an away clean sheet since, ironically, playing Wolves away last September. So, again, wouldn't be desperate to... would I rather have Henry there at the moment? If I was buying new, yes. Desperate to make the move? Nah, not particularly, to be totally honest. Adam says, "Favourite FPL asset of all time?" Well, I think Mo Salah's been the king, hasn't he? My memory doesn't extend back as much as others. And I would ideally say Kane and Dele Alli and stuff when they were dirt cheap, but I had a strict no Tottenham player rule back in those days because of being scared that I would curse them, which I obviously don't live with that sort of thing now. I just cursed anyway, unfortunately. So I'm going to say Salah. Sorry, it's boring. Ryan Cooter says, "Hey James, wondering if I should start Bailey this week to save the transfer or sell Neto for Harrison this week." I wouldn't, but no. Again, it's a difficult fixture for Leeds this week, to be totally honest. Can we leave that Roll 1 more, take a little bit more information? I probably would. Certainly wouldn't fear playing Neto at home to Newcastle either, mate. Will Jones says, "Afternoon, James. Hope you're okay and doing well. Just wondered your thoughts on Diego Simeone as a manager and would he fit the Premier League with his pragmatic style?" I think there was a place for it. I think it's more difficult now. I think should anyone appoint him, they would be aware of the risk. I think he would probably do a really good job if he was going in and there was a serious fire to put out. I'm thinking, for example, when Mourinho got the Tottenham job, if Simeone had got it then, he probably would have done quite a good job, for example. I wouldn't have wanted Simeone either, to be honest. I just think the elite level managers in our league at the moment, none of them play like that. Could you shithouse your way to a title playing that way? It's difficult. It's really difficult to foresee in our league now, to be totally honest. I think if you were picking up one of the big 6 from the floor, possible. You could make a case as well, not that Eddie Howe's doing anything wrong, but yeah, take on something like Newcastle. But the Newcastle fans wouldn't put up with the pragmatic football and stuff. to be honest. I'd rather have the journey, I think. But he is a top manager. It's just not my cup of tea, to be totally honest. Harry Baker says, hi James, not feeling confident about double City defence this week. Start Neto over Walker to spread the risk. Nah, listen, you got Man City defender, you're worried about playing him at home Crystal Palace. Shouldn't be. No, there's no leaving out Man City player. Home game. No, not for me. Of course Neto could outscore him. Spreading the risk. See, this is what we do. We get trapped into thinking about the negative. What about the positive? The double clean sheet. Adam says, if you could take one of Arsenal's players and put them straight into your starting 11, who would it be and why? He had this question a few weeks ago, and someone got really arsey because I didn't say Odegaard. But I could say Gabriel, to be totally honest. That left-sided centre-back, I think would be the one. You'd make a case for Saka as right wing-back, maybe, in the system we're playing at the moment. But I think you're somewhat limiting him of his great potential. But I think he could be a great right wing-back. So maybe Saka right wing-back. I'm going to say Gabriel. I think Saliba as well. He's looking great. I wouldn't know at the moment if he could play left-sided centre-back. And it's what we need most. Ben Davies is doing an absolutely fine job and has been since Antonio Conte came in the door. Alex Abdella says, where am I going with Mount next week? Zaha, Gundogan, downgrade to 5 million mid for Tony, or stick to another 8 million mid, and which? Cheers. I think, Alex, just watch the football, mate. To be Tony next week. So what we're saying, you keep him for Leicester and Southampton, which is perfectly reasonable. Then you want to move off. Well, chances are you feel completely different by then. What do you want to do? Do you want to go into Nottingham Forest for 3 brilliant fixtures who wouldn't be on your radar now? Nah, watch the football, mate. Relax. P. Macker says, missed the start. James, any news on Big Ivan Perisic getting a start Sunday? Thinking of captaining him for a differential. Can't. I've just been told. I've just had a tip off. It doesn't mean it's 100% correct. I've just had a tip off. The Champions League fixtures will be released at 11 a.m. tomorrow. So, yeah, cheers. You know who you are. Just message me. What was the question? Sorry, I've completely forgot. Perisic captain. No, I don't know anything. I'd imagine he starts. Probably about 70-75% on that. Would I captain him? No, mate. No. There's plenty of other differentials you can have. There's no guarantee we're going to get a leak before deadline. It's not worth it. Yeah, you're a hero if it comes off, but it's not realistically worth it. Adam says, what's your worst experience with a rival fan at a ground? I can't think I've particularly had one. I can only think of annoyances sometimes where you're at a game and there's an away fan ends up celebrating near you or something. I don't get into grief, Adam, so no. Alex Abdella says, and lastly, thoughts on Spurs Champions League draws. Someone got lucky. I covered that quite early on, mate. Not necessarily. Billy Anderson says, hi James, random, but have you ever considered a Sun Dream Team pod? Really struggle to find good content out there for it, and you guys are the best in the business. Truthful, I've fought for a number of years of playing, and I did want to play this year, but because I'm an idiot and didn't set it up like well in advance, and similar for Telegraph, it got to like the day before and I just had too much on with the content to give it any thought of brains. So I would like to play the game next year. Would I do content for it? No, because I'm not gonna promote that rag of a newspaper, mate. Absolutely simple as that. Jaron Lee says, we definitely 100% need a full answer on your thoughts on Spurs wingbacks, minutes, expectations for the next few weeks. Minutes, I mean, I've been over this a lot. I covered it a lot on Monday's podcast. If you look on my timeline on Twitter, I even clipped the 10 minutes from the podcast on Monday. My feelings aren't particularly any different from there. If you want a prediction of Perisic minutes over the next 3 games, I will say to you 180, roughly. 75 twice and a 30. Emerson Royal, I'm gonna say a little bit less because I think there's a game that he won't start and he probably won't get brought on for. Doherty, let's say 110. Sessegnon has got to be the opposite of whatever I said for Perisic, isn't it? But let's say for Perisic 180, so let's say 90 for Sessegnon. There you go. Adam's got loads of he's right going for it. Mate, a current Premier League 5-a-side, 1 striker, 1 midfielder, 2 defenders, 1 goalkeeper. What we have 2 defenders for? Goalkeeper's got to be Alisson, I think, particularly for 5-a-side. 2 defenders. Let's have Virgil van Dijk, as long as someone hasn't handcuffed him. I'd say a cheeky punt would be Thiago Silva. He's still got it, absolutely got it. But I feel like I need more pace. I need someone who can break. Can we not just go 1 at the back and 2 in midfield? 1 midfielder. KDB, I think. Forward. Holland. Alex Beale says, afternoon, James. Gone heavy with Cancelo, TAA. Oh, I'm not reading your whole team out. Which players would you downgrade to upgrade the game? Sorry, Alex. Thanks for your question, mate. I'm not going through whole teams, mate. Cheers. Wish you the best of luck. Voyas says, hi, James. Do you think 8 million midfielders have been underwhelming? Do you think the likes of Martinelli and Rodrigo have made having at least one 8 million midfielder redundant? I wouldn't say redundant. I mean, I've got Diaz. I would say that I've become more open to selling. One of the things at the start of the season I kept saying was, I don't like seeing teams without one, because if one goes off, then, oh my God, shit. So we haven't had that. Kulusevski obviously had the great game week 1. We haven't had that kind of fire back-to-back haul yet that's made someone jump to 8-4. Now, if that had happened, and it hadn't happened to Rodrigo and Martinelli, we'd be feeling completely different. And the issue is, and I've thought about this coming down to Rodrigo, Rashford, etc., is it's then a long way back up. And there are so many options there that then you've just eliminated yourself from. So ideally, I'd still like to stay at that value at the moment, because I don't think 3 games is enough data. I will confess that I've definitely thought about coming down. I would want avenues to go back up. So people we haven't seen anything good of yet, people like Jared Bowen, for example, Mason Mount, these can quickly become options. Saka even can quickly become options. So I would still like to be near that valuation personally. Who's next? Joe Knight says, James, could you give me a under 5.3 million midfielder punt for 1-2 game weeks? No Andreas Pereira or Josh Da Silva. Pedro Neto, mate. Yeah, honestly, still. George Prince says, would you consider Robertson and Archer to Nico Williams, Tony for a -4, or just next week for free transfers, mate? I don't think I'd want to make those moves for a free transfer next week, to be honest, mate. No, I would not do that for a hit. Adam says, what's the one game you benefited largely from in FPL but hated to watch? Adam, I don't recall FPL games or scores or stuff like this in my head. If you have a Tottenham question, there's like an encyclopedia in my brain. There's not a lot more space for things on top of that in terms of historical. Alex Abdella says, actually, one last non-FPL question. What's the most unusual situation you've had to make a last-minute deadline transfer in? For me, I was in the middle of running a half marathon. Most unusual. To be honest, if I was going to be in that unusual situation, I'd just make the transfer early. Sorry, it's a really boring and shit answer, isn't it? But it's the truth. I can remember game week 38 a few years ago outside Tottenham. I'd nearly forgot to make the transfers and sitting on the steps outside the ground making the transfers about half an hour before kickoff. Because it was game week 38 and I didn't really care. But no, if I thought I was going to be in a position where I'd get caught out, just make the transfers early. My wife gave birth on a Saturday. I just sat there and made the transfers. I think I can't remember, to tell you the truth. That's what I'm saying. Like FPL historical, my memory is useless. It just wipes from my brain. I've done 1,000 podcasts. That's just the last 5 years. It just wipes from my brain the amount of information that's gone in, and I have to feed out because I have to retain all the Tottenham information. Jordan Harrison says, hi James, hope you're well, mate. Have you seen the latest news regarding Stoke City and a potential appointment of Sunderland's Alex Neil? Any thoughts on him? Yeah, strange one. Having got Sunderland up to then leave, but we don't know the financial incentive on offer from Stoke. It sounds like that's going to happen. Sunderland have openly come out and said that Alex Neil's in talks with Stoke City. Little tip for Sunderland might be that Sean Dyche would perhaps be a very good phone call to make, considering the size of that football club and its expectations. I don't know enough about Neil's spell at Sunderland other than he's done very well, but didn't overly impress at the previous spells, once obviously beyond getting Norwich up. So Stoke obviously want him. They've identified him. All the things that I've heard are very good. I can't give you an honest, great answer on it. An interesting one. On the face of it, do you move from Sunderland to Stoke? I mean, there might be family issues. Maybe he's from that area. Or it could be loads of things. You suspect it's money orientated, don't you? It's a blow for Sunderland, certainly, on what I'm hearing. J23 says, have you seen Bet365 are now doing fantasy football? Is that something that would ever interest you? Are you not much of a gambler? Yeah, it used to be back in the day. I'm not against people having a flutter. I'm just not interested in particularly promoting it myself. I mention odds on the podcast all the time. I just wouldn't like to push the idea of pushing people towards a betting site. That said, I'm well aware for Sky Fantasy Football you have to have a Sky Bet account. You don't have to bet with them. I don't. Just take the money out when I win, although didn't last year. No, probably not. I mean, I wasn't well. I don't overly care. Mr. Anderson says, hi James, what is wrong with Liverpool at the moment? Do you think Darwin returning game week 6, they will turn things around? I'm pretty sure Liverpool will turn things around tomorrow, mate. That midfield that started at United in hindsight with Milner, Henderson and Elliott. And Elliott did okay. But he had no energy for the game that Manchester United brought. Fabinho was a big loss. I'm sure Fabinho will play tomorrow. That just in itself will make it better. They have a clear... If they're without Fabinho and or Thiago, there are issues. Without both is a step too far at the moment, it seems. So, much as Klopp said he probably didn't want to buy a midfielder, they have to consider it. I would think that someone like Yuri Tielemans would be a very sensible transfer for Liverpool at the moment. There have been some Frankie de Jong murmurings since Monday night about Liverpool. As I've mentioned on one of the pods earlier this week, I think they're probably holding on for Jude Bellingham next summer, which is the reluctance to spend big this summer. But moving forward, I think Liverpool probably do want 2 midfielders. Thiago's not going to be there for the next 5 years or so. It's probably... But the amount of injuries that he's had, there's a case to say probably only a few more years at the very top. Lewis Bowman says Perisic faults. We've kind of done this, mate. Cheers. Ragav says, hi James, would you go double Liverpool defence with Trent Robbo from wild card? This is interesting. So the answer to that is no, but not through one. It's down to structure and setup. So I think Robertson is a better option than Diaz, but the structure becomes really difficult. Is the point. You can't get someone else at that kind of Diaz value if you go Robertson and go James, Trent, Perisic, Cancelo. It becomes difficult. So ideal Robertson, but then when you do the matchups from others, like would I rather have Mount over James? No. Would I rather have Gundogan over Cancelo at the moment? No. Would I rather have Kulusevski over Perisic? No. The Liverpool one becomes a bit of a debate because you have 2 there. So you feel like you can cover your bases. So arguably, was I on wildcard now? No. But he'd also be the player I'd be kicking myself about not having, to be honest. I do not want to sell him. It's the primary reason why I'm not taking a -4 this weekend. Is I do not want to sell Andrew Robertson. Miena Sidom says, hey James, bench 1, Rodrigo or St. Maximin or De Silva. Good luck this week. Thanks for that. Just bench De Silva, mate. He ain't going to return that often. The others are capable. Mr. Dyer says, for FPL, for a luxury transfer, should I do Nico Williams to Rico Henry to cover Brentford third defence? Well, I think that's a different one to the early ones, where if you're in a position you're starting Nico Williams, and with Forest playing Tottenham and Man City in the next 2, you probably feel inclined to move it. So yeah, fine, move it. Griff Dempster says, worth wildcarding to bring in KDB and Gundogan. Really have faith that they'll both continue to bang. Current team pretty decent. Wildcarding for 2 players. Sounds like a -4 to me, mate. Dan Moss says, afternoon, James. I hope you've had a good week, mate. Good luck for the weekend. Play it your way. Absolutely. Always play it your way. Glenn Goody says, any news on Maddison? Slight twinge in training, according to Brendan Rodgers, which, I mean, we've all had a slight twinge in our life, haven't we? Some better than others. I don't know what it means, mate. He's a doubt. Noor Zari says, Zaha or Rodrigo to buy this week. Rodrigo, saving on the money, better fixtures. Reality. We know Zaha can return against sides like Man City. We saw it at Liverpool, but yeah, I think on the fixtures, personally, it would still be Rodrigo for me. And even with the doubt. Andy Max says, hi James, on a wild card, would you go KDB or Haaland? And is Doherty worth a punt on wild card if you can afford to bench him? Cheers, mate. Nah, Doherty can come. Doherty's one you can come back to, right? It just doesn't make sense at the moment. I went Sessegnon, it's not worked. So arguably, if you're going to do it, just say get Sessegnon 0.2 cheaper. KDB or Haaland, preference still with Haaland. So just from a structural point of view, again, would like to have a forward where if something happens to him, great, I can go to Kane, I can go to Nunez, I can go to Vardy, I can go to Aubameyang if he joins Chelsea and be within touching distance of all that. So Haaland still slight preference there. Chad Scott says, does Damsgaard start? I'd be astounded if Mikel Damsgaard started for Brentford, mate. Played 64 minutes against Colchester in midweek. They will build him up very, very slowly. Honestly, I would be staggered if he started. And Wilson, hiya James, says, happy with Spurs draw. Yeah, absolutely covered already, mate. Thanks for the question. Chad Scott says, which game does Alvarez start? I think it depends what day Manchester City play in the Champions League. I think if it's Tuesday, then there's every chance it's Villa. And I think if it's Wednesday, there's every chance it's Forest. But let's look at that once we get it. George we can't decide now anyway because it sounds like it's going to be after deadline we get the fixtures. George Hepburn says, hi James, thinking about burning a transfer this week. Teams is as follows. I'm not reading your team, mate, but good luck. T-Tax says, hey James, chance of Perisic playing. It's a bit dull, been over this, mate. Glenn Murray says, Sky question, would you move a Tottenham defender to Chelsea defender on the 30th with no fixture game? No, I wouldn't. If you haven't got a Chelsea and that's your situation, I honestly, unless of course there's an injury, I would put up with it and just captain an enabler that you've got who's playing on that day, mate. T-Tac wants to start De Silva or Andreas. I've got De Silva first sub over Pereira at the moment. Yucca says, hiya James, would you move Neto to grow sideways? Can't afford 6 million and above guys. Now I'd stick at the second. Fantasy Billy says, yo, big man. I recently found out that Shane Duffy used to play for Everton, that's right, and now plays for Fulham. When's the last time you were surprised that a player played for a certain team? There was one I heard literally this morning or last night. Someone had played one game for someone. That's so bugging. Who was it? It was literally someone who had played one game for someone. That's all I can fit in my head now, Bill. Sorry, mate. Hoarder Face says, hello, James. Good afternoon. What is your opinion of dropping Cancelo to a Diaz Perisic? I think that I would not want to be without Cancelo over this next week. And I would potentially consider looking at that again afterwards. But at the moment, I would very much want to keep him, is the play at the moment. Perisic versus Cancelo is a very, very interesting debate and one that I'm probably going to come back to personally. Would I move Cancelo to Perisic now for a free transfer? No. Glenn Goody says, Maddison to Gundogan and KDB to Salah -4, yes or no? It's interesting. On the face of it, it's a yes. But as I've said, I have an inkling KDB might look the best captaincy by the time we come to 5. Then what? Salah becomes very, very difficult to sell at that point. I think if you've got enough doubt, the -4 would suggest no and just go Maddison to Gundogan. But then only you can answer, Glenn, who are you captain this week if you're not captain Mo Salah? Personally, I'll be captain Gabriel Jesus. Right, 2 more before we finish. Ragav says, best 4.5 million goalie to choose on wildcard, please. For me, it would be Raya. The reason it would be Raya over Sanchez, I've spoken about this kind of a lot, is if I was in a position where I wanted a defender from one of the two teams, I would rather have Lewis Dunk than Rico Henry. That's where I'd be at the moment. Absurdologist says, hi James, long time listener. I want to thank you about your huge efforts and your attention to detail. Cheers, mate. Much appreciated. That's a good place to finish, wasn't it? Deadline stream will be at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, although judging by the DM I had, it might be finishing at 11 a.m. because I might have some business to take care of. But it's 10 a.m. tomorrow on the Planet FPL YouTube channel. Advanced tier patrons, you still have your team news and predicted lineup stream coming up in around about 55 minutes from the time that's come out of my mouth. Suj is away next week, but he'll be with me on Monday for the Game Week 4 review podcast, and then I've got a load of guests coming up over the next week or so. Some brilliant guests from the community, both on our free content and also on our Patreon content. I'll give all the details for that, I think, on the deadline stream tomorrow, and then again on Monday's Planet FPL podcast. But if I don't see you or hear from you before, remember to play it your own way, guys. Have a great weekend. Good luck. And for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.